Now let us continue to the self and the culture. So in the previous example, Pedro has his own identity. He knows who he is. But then he has different roles to play, and at the same time he acts or he behaves differently depende sa iya situation or depende sa iya circumstance. Damo siya roles nga gina-play. He's an engineer, he's a family man, a husband, and a father, and he's also an usher. So, French anthropologist Marcel Mauss tried to explain this phenomenon. Ina ba lang, isa ka taho or one person can remain the same person and then all of a sudden change or turn into a chameleon by adapting to one's context. So, according to Moss, the self has two faces, the moi and the person. So, the French word moi, which in English means me, refers to the person's basic identity. So, when we say it's your basic identity, it's usually stable and static. So, it rarely changes. On the other hand, when we say person, it is like a role player. So this is the role that we shift into when we are placed in a certain situation. So class, think of it this way. The moi is our real face and the person is our masks with an S. We wear different masks every day because we are placed in different situations every day. So in our previous example, Pedro surely has a moi because he knows who he is. But when he is at work, he wears a different mask. So he takes on a different role or a different person. And the same thing happens kung ara siya sa ila balay and kung ara siya sa ila simbahan. Another example is our OFWs or overseas Filipino workers. So they need to adjust with the different laws or the practices of the foreign country that they are in for them to be able to survive. So what they do is they have to wear different masks or they have to play different roles depending on their situation. Next, let's proceed to the self and the development of the social world. So it is said that as we grow kuno and as we develop, we are continuously exposed to different factors in the environment that could possibly influence the shaping of ourself. So class, it is wrong for us to think that we are just passive beings and ina ba lang wala gid taya gali ambag sa pag-shape sa aton self. It is also wrong to think that we can never change. Nga kung ano tagali isang gamay ta, the same lang gid taya Japon as tamang tigulang ta. Remember class, one of the characteristics of the self is its malleability. And the self has the capacity to be influenced by external forces na makita sa aton environment. Another thing, language as both publicly shared, kiti ginagamit ang language to communicate with others, and privately utilized symbol system is the site where the individual and the social make and remake each other. So in this statement, the role of language is highlighted. So it is said there that we use language to communicate with other people. And at the same time, we also use language to communicate with our inner self. And it is through language and also through interaction with other people that we are able to shape and reshape. Meaning pwede ta mabag-o ang aton nga self through sa aton nga language and at the same time through our interaction with others. Next, let us proceed to the ideas of George Herbert Mead and Lev Vygotsky. So for Mead and Vygotsky, a man develops with the use of Number one, language acquisition. And number two, interaction with others. So, gin-emphasize naman nila ang role sang language and sang interaction. So, when we say class language acquisition, this is the process of learning either a native language or a second language. So, when we or the way we process information is normally a form of our internal dialogue sa aton nga head. So, internal dialogue is what we call self-talk. So, it is us hearing ourselves talking in our head without actually saying or speaking a word. So, for example, when we make major life decisions, di ba la, before kita mag-decide, we usually engage in an internal dialogue. So, we usually ask ourselves first, baklon ko ni? Himuon ko ni? Should I do this? Should I do that? But if I do this, this will happen. So they believe that the cognitive and the emotional development of a child is actually a copy of what happens in the social world. So, para kay Mead, when a child is exposed to dialogues, the child is able to incorporate certain values, certain norms, certain practices and beliefs so that ini nga mga bagay will become a part of the child as a person. Next, he also added na there are three stages of the self. May preparatory, may play, kag may game stage. So for the preparatory stage, this is when a child imitates people around them. So, ginasunod sang bata ang ginahambal or ang giyo sa mga tao sa palibot. For the play stage, this is when a child develops his or her communication skills. And diri na nag-start ang role playing. Sa third na stage or the game stage, the child who is, let's say, about 8 or 9, the child starts to take on actual task and nag-engage na siya sa relationships. Hindi romantic relationship ha, but relationship with peers or with friends. Next, he also added nga ang self can be divided into two, I and me. I is the representation of the unique traits of a person. Ang me naman niya is composed of the demands of other people and the awareness of those demands. So ang I is the one that develops first. Ang me nagadevelop or is formed during na sang first three stages of development. So according to Mead, as a person grows and as a person matures, the self also changes and it begins to reflect greater concern about the reactions of other people. Next, we have Vygotsky. So, for him, a child internalizes real life dialogues that he has had with others and apply this to his mental and practical problems along with the social and cultural infusions brought about by the said dialogues. So, what Vygotsky means here is that as the child interacts, whatever man nga makuha niya from those interactions or from those dialogues, ginagamit niya ina to solve his or her mental and practical problems. So, Vygotsky also emphasized the importance of what we call private speech in the development, specifically the cognitive development of a child. And private speech or inner talk is viewed as a product of an individual's social environment.